Hello, I'm Isaac Hegseth III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Hey folks, today is Friday, June 13th, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. I'm here in Columbus, Ohio, where in an hour I'll be moderating the State of Black America conversation as part of this Father's Weekend with their daughters. I'll tell you more about that. Coming up on the show, though, we'll be talking with Maryland Governor Wes Moore about Donald Trump's use of the military to serve his partisan purposes, and also this joke of a 250th celebration of the U.S. Army this weekend with a massive military parade. It's really nothing more than a birthday parade for him. Also, longtime Harlem Congressman Charlie Rangel was laid to rest today. We'll show you what took place at his funeral in New York City. And yesterday I was in Memphis speaking there, the 32nd annual Juneteenth Freedom Celebration. We'll show you that speech as well. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin.
Folks, Roland Martin here at the First Church of God here in Columbus, Ohio. And so we're getting ready for this conversation, what is called the State of Black America. I'll be moderating that conversation. This, though, is one of the events taking place here on what is called Black Girl Dad Week. And so there are a number of events that have been taking place all week, taking place on this weekend as well. And so I participated in this event last year. And so looking forward to that conversation. We'll be carrying that discussion live right here on the Black Star Star Network. But first, I want to talk about what's happening in this country. You have all sort of craziness going on with the use of the military for partisan purposes. A federal judge has struck down Donald Trump's commandeering of the National Guard in California, ordering him to back off. That decision came down on yesterday. Now, of course, Trump administration appealed the decision, and so the appeals court has stayed the decision until they actually hear the case. But it is one of the things that people are talking about in terms of his use of the military for his purpose. Earlier this week, he spoke at Fort Bragg, a very partisan speech that he gave, and now we also know that the military base told Trump and his team they could not use a pop-up store selling MAGA gear, but they were overruled. This is absolutely outrageous. Joining us right now is Maryland Governor Wes Moore, of course, a veteran. He understands very well what U.S. Army rules and regulations are when it comes to these type of things. And Governor, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Just as a let's not talk the capacity of a governor, but as somebody who served this country, it has to be offensive to you to watch how this man is using the military, and they're using the language of his troops, his army. That's not how presidents have often referred to members of the military.
And I just believe that one of the most important jobs of the President of the United States is to serve as Commander-in-Chief. Right. It's one of the most important and frankly, one of the most sobering responsibilities for any president of the United States is that you are the commander-in-chief of the world's most powerful army and military. And there's a level of humility that needs to come with that I just think that this president does not absorb. He doesn't do humility. And frankly, watching him give a partisan speech in front of a unit, that was my old unit. When I was in Afghanistan, I served in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division. And to see the same paratroopers with the same patch that I wore on my shoulder, then standing there as props while he is giving a hyper-partisan speech, while he is blasting their former commander-in-chief, President Joe Biden, was just a deeply embarrassing moment in our nation. And, it just continues to highlight the lack of seriousness that I think that he is taking, not just this role of president, but frankly, the lack of seriousness in terms of the role of president of commander-in-chief.
One of the things that the federal judge decided in California, that it was illegal with how he commandeered the National Guard. You are a governor. We know what the protocol is. Typically, in order to activate the National Guard, a governor makes a request. There's an actual law in this country that stipulates members of the military serving on the streets of America. And these folks do not even remotely care about the law or customs or things along those lines. Many people are suggesting that this is really his focus of trying to use the military to stop peaceful protesters across the board because of what took place in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's important for people to know and realize that there's nothing that I take more seriously than any of us as chief executives of our state take more seriously than the safety of our people. We believe in making sure that our people are safe, and we have multiple means and tools to be able to ensure that our people are safe in their communities, in their own homes, in their neighborhoods, in their own skin. And there are scales of escalation, right? So we know that we not only have local police authorities, we have state authorities as well, and that the governor has the unique authority to be able to activate a National Guard because each governor is the commander-in-chief of their state's National Guard. I take a deep sense of pride and humble responsibility to be the commander-in-chief of the Maryland National Guard. And so when I make decisions about when I'm activating the Guard, whether it is for a flooding event, whether it is for unrest, regardless of the reason, I am doing it in coordination with my local jurisdictions because they also have the best understanding on the ground of what is required, and then I can turn around and make the decision. What we saw here was a decision being made that completely usurped any type of input that came from the local authorities and the people on the ground. And so I have no problem with the idea that we have to make sure that people are safe, that we have to be a state that doesn't just guarantee rights, but also that follows the laws. I get that. But I also understand this, that the decisions on things like the escalation to a National Guard level are decisions that are made in coordination with my local jurisdictions. That did not happen. And then especially when you're talking about the activation of active duty Marines, asking them to do policing activities inside of communities, it's not just unprecedented. To your point that you made earlier, Roland, it's a violation. It's a violation of posse comitatus, and so of the law. And so once again, this is just seeing how the administration is continuing to try to use tools of intimidation. But I want to be very clear that in Maryland and in all those other places, like, I will not be intimidated, and we will not be intimidated. That we will make sure that our people are safe, but we'll also make sure that the laws are being followed.
Got to ask you about this military parade happening in Washington, D.C. It's going to cost upwards of $100 million. Many folks are saying this is nothing more than celebrating Donald Trump's birthday as opposed to the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. I talked to a retired two-star general yesterday. He said, and normally when they have military parades, they are designed to actually be family affairs, community affairs. And so it's about really the Army families in the community. That's really, if you're going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, you don't just celebrate the troops and the tanks and the missiles. You actually understand that when you serve in the U.S. Army or any branch of the government, branch of the military, your family is also serving. And so what do you make of this, what he is doing this weekend with this celebration? And what are you hearing from your fellow U.S. Army service members who are no longer serving?
I started my day this morning going down to Fort Meade, one of the active duty bases in my state, and then we did a 2.5 mile run in celebration of 250 years of the United States Army. Myself and over 1,000 other soldiers who are all out there, celebrating the 250th, and just thinking about the impact and the contribution that the United States Army has made to our society, that our society is what our society is. The freedoms that we enjoy are the freedoms that we enjoy because we had people who are willing to put on the uniform and defend those freedoms. And I think about what is being done tomorrow. And again, it cannot be said that, we're just trying to conflate his birthday and the 250 Army birthday, because they said that. We're just repeating a coincidence that they happen to highlight. And so my only point is this. If you want to talk about, or if you want to celebrate veterans, then don't cut the Department of Veterans Affairs, which you just did. If you really want to highlight veterans, then don't do things like lay off thousands of federal workers, knowing the fact that 1 in every 3 federal worker is a military veteran. If you really want to celebrate veterans, don't do things like lay off people whose job, fire people whose job it is to make sure that our military veterans are getting a proper burial, or making sure that those veterans who are coming back home suffering from PTSD, that they are not getting their treatments cut. If you really want to celebrate veterans, then honor their service. Do not use it as a mechanism to try to honor yourself. And so I have a very real issue with this, and particularly being done in the guise of this is a celebration of the Army 250th, because I can think of a lot of better ways to being able to use that capital, those resources, that time, and that attention to be able to celebrate the men and women who are willing to serve on behalf of others than doing something like this, which in many ways, again, is almost it's almost offensive. Being able to see how you can spend time cutting the Department of Veterans Affairs, but then simply say that you believe in the troops because you're willing to put on a parade on your birthday.
Last question for you. The military was desegregated in 1948 by President Harry Truman. We have seen historically African Americans serve with distinction in the U.S. Army and other branches as well. When you think about the importance of black soldiers, of course, people could talk about General Colin Powell, General Benjamin O. Davis, Sr. and Jr., and we can name so many others. just what does this anniversary mean for African Americans who gave their life, who contributed to this country, many of them who did so knowing full well they didn't have full freedom when they came back home. What do you say about those folks on this 250th anniversary?
Some of the bravest soldiers that his country has seen have looked like you and me, Ron. We're talking about people who are willing to fight and risk their lives, and many gave their lives on behalf of a country that was not willing to sacrifice on behalf of the individual. When I think about the military, we're talking about an organization, and again, I'm a very proud military veteran. I'm a very proud combat veteran. I am a deep patriot, and I believe in this country, flaws and all. And I believe in this country because I know its history, not because I ignore it. And I think about the fact that you had desegregation take place in the military before it even took place in society. I think about the fact that you had military generals before you had Black Fortune 100 CEOs. The military, in many ways, was the chance for us to be able to shine, even in a country that oftentimes did not give us the opportunity to shine in other ways. And so the military has always helped to lead the charge when it came to opening up angles and opportunities for so many people within our society. And despite the fact that we had people who came and served, and when the military passed a GI Bill, they were literally saying, we will pass out a GI Bill unless you're Black. So the fact that we've continued to sacrifice on behalf of this country, to serve on behalf of this country, to make this country better, I think the importance of celebrating the 250 for the Army is not just about the contribution the Army has made, but it is about also celebrating the individuals who made the contribution to the Army. And why it's so important for us to remember our history, why it's so important for us, for our history to be lifted up. I think about in the state of Maryland, where we are watching how Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, is going around banning history and banning books on military bases and on our service academy. We're in the state of Maryland. What have we done? We banned the banning of books, where you cannot do that in the state of Maryland. So this becomes a time for us to really embrace the power of this history, the unevenness of the history, with a core understanding that action is required, repair is required. But it takes people who are willing to be true public servants and willing to be true soldiers in this moment in order to make those things happen.
Governor Wes Moore, always a pleasure to have you on the show, Frat.
Great to see you, Frat. God bless, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to show you the funeral of a man who also served his country during Korea, former Congressman Charles Rangel, laid to rest today in New York City. He passed away at the age of 94. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Dr. Kwasi Kanadu, author, scholar, and healer. He is one of the truly representative thinkers and activists of our generation.
I had a dream, a particular night, and when I woke up, several ancestors came to me, and they came to me and said, "We really like what you're doing, but you have to do more."
His writing provides a deep and unique dive into African history through the eyes of some of the interesting characters who have lived in it, including some in his own family. The multi-talented, always fascinating Dr. Kwasi Kanadu on the next Black Table here on the Black Star Network.
Hey, this is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect anything less? Watch what happens next.
St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City today was jam-packed with many luminaries, politicians, and community activists and others as they celebrated the life and legacy of the late Congressman Charlie Rangel. He passed away at the age of 94. Rangel served this country in Korea. He also, of course, was one of the top members of Congress, known all over the world for that raspy voice. He replaced Adam Clayton Powell in Congress and served with distinction for more than 30 years. Rangel was celebrated and feted by so many today. There were numerous celebrations. He was a member of many organizations, including my beloved Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, where there was an Omega service for him as well. And among the people who spoke at his funeral, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn. Also, of course, President Bill Clinton. Here is some of the speakers today at the funeral, Congressman Charlie Rangel.
It's with a heavy heart that we gather here today, and that on behalf of the House, I offer our deepest condolences on the passing, Stephen and Alicia and the grandsons of your father, your grandfather, to the Rangel family of this great patriarch and this great leader. We mourn his loss, but of course we are also here to celebrate the life of Charles B. Rangel, a great American patriot. Now, Charlie Rangel loved the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives, all of us, we loved him, which is why there are more than 20 members, past and present, of the House who are here today, including Speaker Emerita Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. I would ask the House delegation if they could all stand. And I'm thankful. We are here, of course, to celebrate Congressman Rangel's life. What a life that he lived. What a leader. What a legacy. The legendary Lion of Lenox Avenue. America is better off today because of his service. Now, a lot can be said about Charlie Rangel, but let me just briefly make clear one or two things. Charlie Rangel was a good man, a family man, a well-educated man, a well-dressed man, an alpha man, an army man, a community man, a courageous man, a compassionate man, a heroic man, a humorous man, a hardworking man, and above all else, Charlie Rangel was a Harlem man. He was a Harlem man. He loved Harlem. In fact, I came to understand in my conversations with the great Charlie Rangel that in his heart of hearts, Charlie Rangel took the position that the H in heaven stood for Harlem. We're thankful for his life, his legacy, his leadership. I'm personally thankful. All of us in Congress are thankful for his advice, his guidance, and his mentorship. Always generous. No matter how new you were in public service, new to the United States Congress. He helped us become the best public servants that we could be. The most effective representatives on the ground, back at home in our communities that we could be. Helped us with our re-elections, taught us how to get re-elected, which he was able to do more than 20 times to the House of Representatives without ever losing a race. And you know, thankful for his advice, his guidance. One of the earliest conversations I had with Charlie Rangel was a new member of Congress. Was on the subject of fundraising, which of course you have to do to continue your public service journey. And it was a conversation related to his annual birthday event, an event that he would hold each and every August at Tavern on the Green. A who's who of people would show up. And as a new member of Congress, I had the opportunity to attend, struck up the courage, and I said to Charlie Rangel, his annual birthday event in August. I said, Mr. Rangel, is today your actual birthday? He said, no, Jeff. Now, Charlie Rangel would often call me Jeff. I believed it was short for Jeffries, but I never confirmed that, because this was Charlie Rangel. And so you go with the flow. He said, no, my birthday is in June. I said, Mr. Rangel, your birthday is in June, but each and every August you have this spectacular birthday event year after year after year. He said, Jeff, my birthday is whenever the hell my fundraiser tells me it is. He was a good man, had a big heart, big personality, got big things done. So as I take my seat, let me just simply say he returned home, dropped out from high school, went to the Army, was sent to Korea, returned home a war hero, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, saved over 40 members of his unit who were under attack by the Chinese. He told us the story often. Had he done nothing else in his life, he would have already done more than most Americans have ever done for their country. Nothing else. But that wasn't the end of Charlie Rangel's story. So he had to figure out what he was going to do next. And he told us, of course, that he was inspired as it relates to his career by his maternal grandfather who helped to raise him, who worked, of course, as an elevator operator in Manhattan criminal court. And his grandfather urged him to go to law school, having spent a lot of time around lawyers. And Charlie Rangel would tell us that had his grandfather been an elevator operator in a hospital, he may have gone to medical school. But aren't we thankful that his grandfather worked at Manhattan criminal court? Because if he didn't work at Manhattan criminal court, Charlie Rangel would have never gone to law school. Had he never gone to law school, he would have never become a lawyer. Had he never become a lawyer, he couldn't have become a federal prosecutor. Had he never been a federal prosecutor, he likely wouldn't have been elected to the New York State Assembly. Had he never gotten elected to the New York State Assembly, he would have likely not gone to Congress. Had he not gone to Congress, he never could have helped found the Congressional Black Caucus. Had he never been a founder of the Congressional Black Caucus, he never would have been appointed to the Ways and Means Committee in 1974, first African-American ever to serve on the Ways and Means Committee. Had he never emerged as an effective member of the Ways and Means Committee, he never could have become such a champion for using the tax code to make life better for the American people, a champion of the low-income housing tax credit, champion of the child tax credit, champion of the economic opportunity tax credit, champion of the Rangel Amendment, which used the tax code to help dismantle apartheid, champion of empowerment zone legislation that revitalized the inner city. Had he never emerged as an effective member of the Ways and Means Committee, then he never could have become the chairman of this powerful committee, the first African-American in the nation's history to serve, using that committee to do things like helping President Obama pass the historic Affordable Care Act. We're thankful for Charlie Rangel's journey, because Charlie Rangel's journey taught us that while the devil may be a hater, God will be your elevator. He'll open the right door, he'll press the right button, and he'll get you to where you need to go. And I'm thankful that Charlie Rangel had one last stop on his journey. It wasn't City College, it wasn't the Rangel Center, it wasn't 145th and Lenox. He had one last stop on his journey, and it was up in heaven. And when he got there, I'm told that Alma Rangel, his beloved wife of 60 years, was there. And Hazel Dukes was there. And Constance Baker Motley was there. And Percy Sutton was there. And Basil Patterson was there. And David Dinkins was there to greet him. But the first person that said anything to him was Charlie Rangel's grandfather, who said, "Welcome home, Charlie. You've reached the top floor." God bless you, Charlie Rangel.
Although Congressman Charlie Rangel was an institution in the House, he, of course, was from New York. That means working closely on the Senate side. And so one of these speakers at his funeral today was Democratic leader in the Senate, the minority leader, Chuck Schumer.
Whenever you lose a loved one, someone as dear as Charlie is to all of us, someone who's been part of our lives for so long, you never know what quality of theirs will stand out as you look back. I am speaking of that special quality in someone that spontaneously just comes to you over and over again as you look back and miss them. For me, with Charlie, it was his voice. You remember that voice? I think of Charlie and I hear it echoing around in my head and in my heart. The voice comes to me. No one, I mean no one, sounded like Charlie sounded. The voice had an instrumental quality to it. It was alternatively raspy and resonant. It whispered. It wailed. He went high, he went low. The voice, like Charlie, had so much range. And Charlie played that voice like another Charlie. Charlie Parker played the sax. He was a master, sometimes playing a sweet melody, sometimes playing a unique, witty, and genius improvisation. That voice was a gift from God. But as we all know from the parable of the talents Jesus taught us about the three men who were given different amounts of money by their master and told to use it as they felt best, it's not about the amount of value of the gifts you're given. Rather, it is about what you do with the gifts you have been given. And from the streets of Harlem, to the halls of Congress, to the West Wing of the White House, Charlie used that unique voice of his to speak for others. As Harlem rappers Eric B. and Rakim would say, Charlie was the invincible microphone fiend, a smooth operator operating correctly. To persuade voters, to build power, to deliver help to those in need, to call out injustice and economic unfairness and racial bias, to fight for the underdog. That even included me. Charlie endorsed me for the Senate. No one thought I could beat Al D'Amato when I was at about 8% in the polls, and precious few believed I could win. But Charlie and the wonderful Jim Capel, does everyone remember Jim? Went all in for me and played a massive role in turning things around and paving a path to victory. When Charlie endorsed me, he told me in typical fashion, "I'm with you till I'm not." But he was always with me, not only when I got to the Senate, but throughout our career. The Chuck and Charlie show was always moving forward. I'll never stop thanking Charlie for all of that. From the lofty platform he achieved via his talent and hard work, Charlie used that voice to make policy that reflected those biblical values he learned as an altar boy at St. Aloysius, to clothe and feed the poor by robustly funding SNAP. And we're fighting to keep SNAP. We're not going to let those sons of guns take it away from us. To house the needy. When everyone else on the Ways and Means Committee would ask for little goodies for themselves, the only thing Charlie ever asked for was increase the low-income housing tax credit, and millions of people are living in decent housing because of what Charlie did. To care for the sick with better access to health care, including passage of the Affordable Care Act. And together we fought to get equitable Medicaid for Puerto Rico, to visit the imprisoned and help them get back to the community when he passed the Second Chance Act. Or better yet, to pass laws that fund education and job training and create empowerment zones to make it less likely people go to prison in the first place. Yes, Charlie used that wonderful, amazing, sonorous voice for others. He used it in all too human a way as well, to make us laugh. As we know, Charlie was a funny guy, and he was master of the sharp-witted quip. Above all, he used his voice to care for those he loved.
The main eulogy was delivered by former President Bill Clinton, of course, who served 8 years, and it was when Republicans did not want Bill Clinton to open his office in Manhattan, saying it cost too much money. He then chose to take his office to Harlem, and who was there to greet him with open arms? It was Congressman Charles Rangel. The president talked about that in his eulogy.
I would like to thank Charlie's grandchildren, Stephen and Alicia, and the entire family here today, first for asking me to say a few words about my friend, my steadfast ally, and as been said, one of the most effective members ever to serve in the Congress. But second, for supporting him in his long career. I thank the members of his district who let him come to Washington 23 times, and for giving him the space and support not just to faithfully serve Harlem, but to serve the rest of the nation and people all around the world. Not every district will do that. And the people who sent him there deserve thanks for the life he lived. You know, another great New Yorker, FDR, was called the Happy Warrior. Really, he called another great New Yorker, Governor Al Smith, a happy warrior in his speech. But I don't think I ever knew a happier warrior than Charlie Rangel. And there are so many things you can talk about, but I want to talk about two things he did in particular that touched my life and changed my ability to be president in the right way. First, when we were working on our first big economic bill, Charlie wanted very much to include the empowerment zones. So did I. I campaigned on it. I didn't know if we'd get it because in the beginning, we only had enough money to do 6 in the whole country. But the very first one was in Harlem. And so I signed the bill, and we went to work. And what happened? In just 8 years, unemployment in Harlem went from above 20% to 8%. Thank you, Charlie Rangel. And in so doing, we proved it would work everywhere. If you just gave people the incentive to look at poor neighborhoods and poor people as opportunities and equal citizens, you could get unbelievable results. Now, second thing I want to say is he also was a major sponsor of the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act. As we see every day, a lot of people don't seem to know much about Africa or care very much about it, but Charlie did. And I thought this was a great idea. And this idea has stayed with me in my little house in Chappaqua to this day. Because a couple of years after I left the White House, I went back to Ghana, where I had the biggest crowd I'd ever spoken to as president. There were like 1 million people in the streets. It was unbelievable. So I went to Ghana, did my business, was back on the airport tarmac, and was walking to the plane. And this woman said, "President Clinton, don't go, don't go." And she was running after me on the tarmac, waving something. So I stopped and shook her hand, and she said, "Because of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, I am one of 300 women who have our first paying jobs, and all our kids are in school, and we're making shirts. And I wanted to thank you, and here's your shirt." I took that shirt home, and I put it on a little shelf in my closet so that every morning of my life I would see that shirt and be reminded, first of all, of the power of people who care to do good, and secondly, that that woman wasn't mad at me or America. She knew that they might never be as wealthy as we were, but they were way better off. She knew that somebody beyond her borders cared. That is the kind of thing that Charlie Rangel deserves to be remembered for and appreciated for till the end of time. The other thing I want to say is, if he was your friend, you never had to look over your shoulder. So when Hillary was elected senator, after Senator Moynihan retired, the first person who called her and asked her to run was Charlie Rangel. And once he settled on that, he never stopped caring for her and working for her and standing with her. He could not be intimidated to change his position. And then when I went to announce I was moving to New York, I didn't pay much attention to where I was going. I was too busy being president. And my office found this beautiful suite in a building next to Carnegie Hall. And since I love music, I thought this would be a cool gig. I'd just walk next door and hear anything. But oh, you would have thought I had robbed Fort Knox. All these Republicans were really upset. And one of them was, wanted to do an audit and a hearing and everything. And it reminded me of Benjamin Franklin's wisdom when he said, "Our enemies are our friends, for they show us our faults." I said, I don't care about this. And I remember I was laying on the bed in the middle of the day in Miami, having gone there for a speech, feeling sort of sorry for myself. And I picked up the phone and called Charlie, and I said, "Can you get me an office in Harlem?" And he said, "Not before tomorrow morning." And that's what happened. And I know a thing or two about what he had to do to open this opportunity. But all of a sudden, I had an office on the top floor of 55 West 125th Street, and it is still there. So I never will forget that. And Charlie was there when we opened it, and Cicely Tyson was the MC, and we sang Stand By Me. Charlie Rangel stood by every single solitary person he ever tried to help. Nancy Pelosi didn't have to worry about him when the vote counting came. Hillary didn't have to worry about him when she ventured out into national politics. And I never gave it a second thought. Well, we disagreed some. And one disagreement we had, I was right and he was right. We were both right. It just depended on who was president. When I was president, it looked like a good idea what I did. When I wasn't, and the members of the other party was president, it looked like Charlie was right. I am so grateful that he proved the scriptures right, that a happy heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones. He got here for 94 years. And I am convinced it's because of his happy heart. I am grateful for him. I get to look at that shirt every morning still and think of Charlie Rangel, who cared about people halfway around the world and never once took his eye off Harlem. That is the great trick of all public service in a democracy. Now there are people saying literally, democracy can't survive. AI is going to make it irrelevant. Something's going to happen. It's going to be awful. And we see it stressed today in many ways. I ask all of you never to forget the smile on his face, the spring in his step, the steel in his spine, and fight on for the world he loved and the country he believed in. Thank you.
Folks, Charlie Rangel, an amazing brother. It was always a pleasure to see him, to greet him. He had that huge smile, of course, and that voice, as Senator Chuck Schumer talked about. Of course, his homegoing service. Charlie Rangel, 94 years old, one hell of a life. Folks, going to a break. We come back. We're going to show you the speech from Memphis for the 32nd annual Juneteenth Freedom Festival. Don't forget, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, do so by contributing to our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars allow us to be able to travel around the country, do things like this, be able to bring shows to you on the road. So you want to do via Cash App, use the striped QR code. You see it right here on the screen. Click the Cash App button to continue to contribute. Checks and money order, make them payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Mail them to P.O. Box 57196. Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Again, PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland@RolandSMartin.com, Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, have you ever had a $1 million idea and wondered how to bring it to life? Well, it's all about turning problems into opportunities. On our next Get Wealthy, you'll learn of a woman who identified the overload bag syndrome, and now she's taking that money to the bank through global sales in major department stores.
And I was just struggling with 2 or 3 bags on the train. And I looked around on the train and I said, you know what? There are a lot of women that are carrying two or 3 bags.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
This is Reggie Rock Byford. You're watching
Roland Martin, unfiltered, uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable. You hear me?
All right, folks, yesterday I was in Memphis for the 32nd annual Juneteenth Freedom Celebration. I had an opportunity to deliver the keynote speech there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you some of that speech and make sure you all love it. Then I'm going to reset and we're going to get ready for the State of Black America panel here that will be live streaming right here on the Black Star Network as well. So I'm here in Columbus today, but this is my speech yesterday in Memphis.
Thank you so much. Glad to see everyone here, and glad to be back in Memphis. I've been here numerous times, and so glad to see all of you. For 6 or 7 years straight, I did Reverend Whalen's Men's Month, and so it was always good to see him and see members of our event, but also to say what needs to be said. Let me also thank the folks who have supported the work that I've done over the years, but especially the last 6.5 years. When TV One canceled News One Now in December 2017, there were a lot of people who were upset, who were angry at that, but I wasn't. And it was interesting when Alfred Liggins, the CEO, was telling me that he was canceling the show. They were looking to cut their debt load. Literally, as he was talking, I was already planning because I understood where our industry was going. There were people, and in fact, at the time, I was talking to some folks at YouTube, and they were funding various projects, and they literally said that black news simply would not work. There were black folks who told me the exact same thing, but I knew that they were actually wrong. And so we went about the business doing what we do and doing the work and focusing on that and building it ground up. And in 6.5 years, we went from 157,000 subscribers on our YouTube channels to 1.8 million. We have grown tremendously, going from 1 show to 5 shows. But if you want to understand what happens when you just put in the work and you do the work and you don't worry about the naysayers, when I met with the same YouTube folks in August, they told me that when they grouped all of the different, what they call progressive shows, and I'll make it clear, our show, we're not progressive, we're not conservative, we're not Democrat, we're not Republican, we're black. And so, where we center African Americans. Which is not the case in most places. And what they said is when they grouped us in all of the progressive channels, all of them channels that are much larger than us, folks that have 3, 4, 5, 6 million followers, that we were number 1 in terms of watch time per viewer, meaning folk watched our content longer than all of those other shows. And then on March 4th this year, when the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon con man in chief gave a speech to Congress, we decided to do what we call the State of Our Union. And I sent a text message out, 6 or 8 people, and I actually forgot who I sent it to. And the text message I sent out said, hey, we're doing this coverage. Let's not give our black eyeballs to these other networks. Let's watch it here. And I said, let's have 100,000 folks watching. Now, up until that point, the most people that we had watching our show live at any time was the day the Tyree Nichols video was released. We were at 8,000 folks that day when 7 p.m. hit, when the video was released, 7 p.m. Eastern. In 15 minutes, went from 8,000 to 29,000. So that was the mark. So in my mind, I said, I threw it out there, but if it's 40, 50, I'm fine. And I wasn't even necessarily thinking that way because I don't get wrapped up in those things yet. And then, of course, on that night, we had Bishop William Barber, who gave our speech. I did not carry a word of what Trump had to say. Bishop Barber gave out the State of Our Union from our studios. And when we went live that night, and what happened here was, again, I just sent the text message to 6 or 8 people. Then all of a sudden, like on Sunday, a couple of people hit me. They said, hey, you know, is this real? And I said, yes, it is. Then on Monday, about 5 or 6 people hit me and they said, hey, is this real? This showed up in our family group chat. The patriarch or the matriarch of our family posted this and they saw this. Then on Tuesday, about 30 people hit me saying, hey, this showed up. My uncle posted this. My aunt posted this. My mother posted this. My grandmother posted this. And what we begin to realize is that literally in black chat text groups all across the country, this one text message was spreading. I didn't do any black radio. I didn't do any interviews. We didn't do any advertising. It literally was a single text message. So when we went live that night, within 2 minutes of going live, we were sitting at 40,000. And then within 5 to 10 minutes, it was 67,000. Within 20 minutes, we had crossed 100,000. When I tossed to Bishop William Barber, we were at 200,000. At the peak of him speaking, we hit 250,000 folks who were watching live. When they came back and put it all together, out of all of the media outlets in America, out of everybody that was covering the speech that night, out of all of these channels on YouTube, we're talking about media companies, Time and Newsweek and NBC and ABC and CBS, all of these major companies, on that night, our channel was number 5 out of everybody in the world that was covering that speech. Now, why is that important? Because first of all, once you show you can do it, it means that there's no excuse. It can't be done again and on a consistent basis. What it also showed is what can happen when black folks move collectively in terms of an action. See, we often say, well, we can't do this, we can't do that, but it actually happened. I remember when I was an editor in Dallas and I had a reporter, and I always talk about Kelvin Bass. He works now for State Senator Royce West in Texas. And Kelvin, he wrote a story on Erykah Badu, and he knew Erykah Badu's grandmother. And so he really took his time writing the story and researching and putting everything into it. So when I read it, I didn't have to do much editing to his story. Now, the following week, after it ran on the front page, he turned in the story, and I said, Kelvin, come over here. And he came over, I said, what the hell is this? He's like, what do you mean? I said, this story sucks. So then I proceeded to cuss him out. I said, because, see, you messed up. He's like, what do you mean I messed up? I said, see, you messed up because you showed me last week what you can do when you give a damn. What you are now telling me is this story means nothing, so you didn't spend any time, anything in it. I said, and it reads like crap. I said, you messed up because you showed me that it's actually in you. Now my expectation for you is I got to see that now every single week. And I say that because that really has to be a state of mind for many of us, because too many of us literally are making excuses as to why certain things cannot happen. At the table, I asked the question, what's the largest black-owned business in Memphis? Folk couldn't give me a name. That is a problem. And so I need us to understand that I'm not interested in the same old same. I'm not interested in another black mayor. I'm not interested in more black council members. I'm not interested in more black county commissioners. What I'm interested in is, what are you doing while you are there? So allow me to church-going folk are familiar with the phrase, allow me to tag this text. So just in case you don't remember anything and I got to give you a title that you can, people ask you, well, what did he talk about when he came to the 32nd annual Juneteenth celebration? You can give him this here. I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. This holiday for me is a lot more personal than it is for other people. Because first and foremost, this is the only national day where this nation has to utter the word slavery. See, a lot of folk have made fun of black folks in Texas because, oh, y'all got the word too late, as if there was Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat in 1863. Dr. Gerald Horne has written a book talking about the counter-revolution in Texas that preceded the Civil War, and what he lays out that war in Texas for, quote, Texas independence, that war preceded the Civil War and actually set up what took place with the Civil War and the fascism in this country. And he talked about how the story was told when General Granger came to the shores of Galveston, Texas, to give the word to the people who were enslaved of African descent in Texas that they were now free. But the problem with that is like the problem with so much of American history. It literally is white his story. What Horne's research showed, there were thousands of black troops that accompanied General Granger. It showed that there were people in Texas who defied the law, the Emancipation Proclamation that was actually given. We also know that that's the case because same President Andrew Jackson ignored the Supreme Court ruling, which literally led to the Trail of Tears, which was a part of the elimination of Native Americans. So don't be mistaken. There is historical precedence in this country of presidents or people who occupy the Oval Office ignoring Supreme Court rulings. Now understand, when the Emancipation Proclamation was then issued and then folks in Texas found out, really what happened was they were actually being kidnapped and held captive because the folks in Texas knew about the Emancipation Proclamation, but they chose not to abide by it. So it wasn't that the black folks there found out late, they were being held captive by their I call them prisoners. That's what I call them. They were actually prisoners of these racist folks. Because, see, you have to understand that Texas independence was all about slavery. Just a couple of weeks ago, I came home and my wife was watching the History Channel, and they had this 4-part docu-series on the frontiersmen. And in this docu-series, it is talking about how all of these individuals, how they settled America and they settled the West, and what happened when the likes of Davy Crockett, who was an American hero, and others, when they went to Texas, and then there was this battle over land. And I'm watching the docu-series, and all I'm hearing them say in the docu-series, and Leonardo DiCaprio was one of the executive producers of it, amongst many other names, and they kept saying they were fighting for Texas independence, but they never were defining exactly what that Texas independence was, because really what they were fighting against was that you had a Mexican president of African descent that abolished slavery in Mexico, and Mexico was a border state with Texas. They controlled Texas. It was a border state with the United States, and so the white settlers in Texas did not want to have slavery in. So then what we have, again, white history, white his story, and again, I grew up in Texas. Every Texan is required in the 7th grade to take a Texas history class. The book is literally that thick. It is a bullshit book. Because They have created the myth of remember the Alamo. But nobody asked, well, why should we remember the Alamo? Because the fight at the Alamo, where Davy Crockett and others were killed, the Alamo was a battle over slavery. They were fighting to keep slavery. They did not like the fact that Mexico had abolished slavery, and so they said, we need to succeed from Mexico to gain Texas independence so we can steal the land and keep slavery. That's the real history. But again, in this country, when folk write the story and don't look like us, they conveniently left that out of the narrative as to why they were fighting for, quote, Texas independence. And so then you get to the point where we get the word, and you then begin to have this annual celebration of Juneteenth. And what folk need to understand, and I was having this conversation with Governor Wes Moore, my alpha brother, and because he asked me to come to the Maryland event. I said, well, I'll be speaking in West Virginia on June 19th and in St. Louis on June 20th. I said, but Governor, do me a favor. I need you to make it plain that Juneteenth is not a day of parties and picnics and concerts. It is a day where the people, the freed folk of African descent in Texas, always said it is a day for not some freedom, not partial freedom, but complete freedom. It was freedom to vote. It was freedom to live. It was freedom to have housing. It was freedom to have jobs. It was freedom to own businesses. It was freedom to be able to walk into stores and not be followed. It was freedom not to have your women raped and pillaged by other folk. It was freedom to have your kids educated. That's what it's about. I said, so when this became a national holiday, and I said, don't make the mistake. I said, talk to folks in Texas to understand what it was all about. This is what not do. It wasn't not another nice little cute little time. It was a yearly reminder of the fight for freedom of people of African descent. And so that really has to be the mindset of every single person here. And so if you're celebrating Juneteenth here in Memphis, you now need to be asking the question, what is it we are doing to gain our freedom in Memphis? And see, I appreciate earlier when the pastor said that America has called Memphis the blackest city in America. Well, here's my problem with that. When they talk about Washington, D.C. as the chocolate city, they're talking about Marion Barry and other black mayors and the opportunities they created for African Americans using their power for black business. When Atlanta is called the Black Mecca, it's because of Maynard Jackson and Andrew Young and Maynard Jackson and Bill Campbell and Shirley Franklin and Kasim Reed and Keisha Lance Bottoms and now Mayor Andre. When they talk about other cities, when they talk about other cities in terms of what they have done, I'm confused. I'm confused. How can this city be the place where Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was killed, and he often talked about the issue of economic freedom in the speech that he gave on April 3rd, 1968. That was an economic blueprint where he literally said in that sermon at Mason Temple that we need to pull our resources. He at one point said, Jesse, what do you call it? Redistribute the pain. In that same sermon, he said the companies that should be boycotted, if folk are not doing business with us, we don't do business with them. Well, Memphis, I need y'all to explain to me how in the hell you are 62% of this city and you are in the condition that you are in. I need black leaders, black political leaders. I need business leaders. I need preachers in this city to explain to me, how are you so comfortable in a city that literally practices economic apartheid against black people? I need you to ask the question of the black mayors that were elected before you, how is it that they were complicit in allowing the economic apartheid to continue? There is no way in the world you can have a city that is 62% African American and your contracts don't even reach 25%. That means that every black person in this city that is paying property taxes, sales taxes, you are spending money, you are virtually not getting a return on your investment, but we are just happy with the facade of leadership. See, I'm not satisfied because somebody black is sitting in a position, because let me be real clear. There's a difference between being present and having presence. See, when you're present, you just show up. You can be present and no one know you're there. You can be present and literally have no fingerprints, no footprints, but the question is, do you have presence? When you walk into the room, does the temperature change? When you walk into the room, do some folk start getting uncomfortable? If you are a black leader in Memphis and you walk into a room and folk in the room don't get uncomfortable, you simply are present. I'm not interested in the performative. This is a question of results. And let me be real clear. There are white Americans who care more about the collective of black folks than some black folks. When you look at the history of the Black Freedom Movement, the Civil Rights Movement, you have that. When I listen to folks sit here and say, oh, no, you shouldn't criticize the founding fathers, you shouldn't criticize the folk who had slaves because they were men of their time. Well, so was John Brown. John Brown was a white man who believed in the Bible, who was willing to kill folk because he despised slavery. That means you need to have folk in this city who don't have the same melanin, who should be angry with what they see economically that's happening in this city. Every single year, we commemorate the assassination of Dr. King minus an economic conversation. I'm not interested in any more gatherings. We go to Selma to commemorate Bloody Sunday, and Selma looks the same today as it did when they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. In fact, when we go to Selma, we don't even stay in Selma because ain't no hotels to stay in Selma. Folks stay in Montgomery and drive to Selma for the event to walk across the bridge and go back to Montgomery. See, at some point, we have to have an attitude of, I'm not satisfied. And I'm telling you right now, I know what's happening. I know there's some people who are political leaders in the room who are like, well, no, we're doing a lot. I can't accept that. Because I need to see the fruits of your labor. I need to understand right now how black Memphis is not having a daily march against Elon Musk turbines in this city. See, I don't want to hear all that, we the blackest city in the country. Well, damn it, show it. Because if anybody understands the history of black people, it has been one of agitation, of protest, of demanding for change, not being comfortable, not being willing to accept the status quo. See, when we begin to accept the status quo, Then we begin to say, well, no, everything is good. We great. It's all fine. So we really shouldn't say nothing, do nothing. We don't want to upset the balance. We don't want to make folk upset. No, we shouldn't do that because, the mayor's black, so we don't want to do that whole thing. I saw that with Obama. There were black people I remember being a part of a conversation. I mean, it probably was at least 30 degrees at the table. And they were like, well, no, Ro, we can't be doing that because, if we ask for a lot of stuff, white people are not going to vote for him in the second term, so we can't ask for nothing because we got to wait till the second term. And then when the second term was like, well, we really can't ask for that. I said, no, I'm confused. Because, and I said this all the time, I said, black people were the only ones who stayed at the inauguration parade. Everybody else left. We were so happy and excited to look up, oh, we got a black first family. Oh. But everybody forgot he was the 44th. How in the hell did we put pressure on the previous 43, but we said, no, we ain't going to do nothing with the 44th because he's the first, no, he's the first black, but he's the 44th. So I can praise being the first black, but damn it, I can ask for some stuff for the 44th. And that literally is the posture that we often take. We have folk in this, and let's just be, see, again, I ain't interested in dancing around stuff. Because let me be real clear. My mama, be 78 in November. It was 8 kids in her family. The 8 kids had 39 kids. The 39 kids had 70 plus grandkids. No, they had 39 kids, which is my grandparents' grandkids. The 39 kids had like 70 kids. The 72 had more like 120. Every Sunday, my grandparents' house, for 15 years, till my grandfather died, we were there every single Sunday, all of us together in that 1,500 square foot house. I never slept at a non-family member's house till I got to college because I had family. I didn't have room for friends. So let me be real clear to everybody in the room. I don't need no new friends. I come from a large family. So I don't have to sit here and play nice with folk. The network I have, I own. The only person on my hierarchy, on my flow chart, there's God, then me. There's nobody above me. So you can't call nobody. You can't text nobody. You can't even call my wife because she's like, I can't tell them what to do, so I'm going to let y'all know. So with that said, it is stunning to me, and I see this all the time. And I've been following lectures. I am confused. How in the hell you got races with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 black folk running? When if 10 run, 8 of them know they ain't got no shot whatsoever. And then when you lose, now you mad. When Tashara Jones ran for mayor in St. Louis, the reason she didn't get elected the previous time is because there were 2 or 3 black male candidates who ran, but they didn't want the sister to win. But if you ask those same black men running, who likely are running their operations, it's sisters. It literally is the dumbest thing in the world. See, if you don't understand how to amass power, then you don't know how to use power. That means sometimes y'all got to have the courage to tell people, I need to sit your ass down. You don't need to run. See, I told you, I'm not here to mince words. That's a problem for me. Atlanta is what it is because Maynard, Young, Maynard, Bill Campbell, Shirley Franklin, Kasim Reed, Keisha Lance Bobbitt, Andre. That's why Atlanta is what it is. Because they have had consistent black leadership that has leveraged political power, economic power, to create opportunities that go beyond the city of Atlanta. So I need you to now answer the question. If we talk about, historically, what Washington, D.C. has done for African American economic empowerment, and what Atlanta has done, and what Houston has done, and what Chicago has done, even though Chicago now for the first time had back-to-back black mayors. So Chicago in its history has only had 3 black mayors. Houston in its history has only had 2 black mayors. You've had 5, 3 elected. So I need to now ask you the question, how is it when we talk about black elected leadership in all these other cities and what came out as a result of them being elected, you now should be asking the question, why is Memphis never mentioned? So if Memphis is never mentioned in terms of outcomes for black folk, that means the folks that you have had elected did not deliver. Results are results. I'm just trying to tell y'all. I deal with this every single day. When we talk about right now, when we talk about what happened in the 70s and 80s, we talk about Hatcher in Gary, Indiana, Stokes in Cleveland, Jackson in Atlanta, Coleman Young in Detroit, Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, and how they use that power when Maynard Jackson said tumbleweeds will be going down these runways before I allow this airport to be expanded without black participation. Maynard Jackson told the banks in Atlanta, y'all got to add black board members. They said, ain't no black folks we can find. He said, Mr. City Treasurer, come into my office. Take our money out they banks. Oh, hold on, what you doing? He said, no. You're not going to have city money in your banks, but you can't find black folks to be on your boards. When he became mayor, African Americans were getting 0.0012% of all city contracts. Not 1%, not 0.5%, not 0.25, not 0.10, 0.0012. See, this is America, y'all. If you ain't having a money conversation, you are not having an American conversation. If you want to understand America, just go to Washington, D.C. If you stand in front of the White House and you look at the White House represents power. If you look to the left, you see another building that's on the same land as the White House. That's the Department of Treasury. The White House is power, Treasury is money. Treasury is money, the White House is power. Those two things go together. Why do you think when that convicted felon, that twice impeached thug, went to Saudi Arabia, 32 American CEOs went with him who were running multi-billion-dollar companies? Because politics and money go together. Let's not be confused. And so I understand we can talk about social justice and we can talk about voting rights, we can talk about housing, but everything in America emanates from money. King understood that, Abernathy understood that, all the folk understood that. And so why is it that this generation is being so soft and unwilling to be challenging folks in this way? When I asked the question, can you name me the largest business? Folk couldn't name it. There's no reason in the world there is not a major black-owned construction company in this city, or engineering firm, an architectural firm. You should be able to run down the line, but it's not there. You should be asking yourself, that's a problem. Because if you're not incubating and growing and building capacity of black businesses, then you're not creating opportunities for the next generation. And so then when folk run, they are running on an agenda of how can I lower crime? Do understand this, and John Hope Bryant talks about it all the time. You ain't never seen a riot in a neighborhood with a credit score of 700 or higher. If you show me, if I lay out a map of Memphis right now, and if you see the lowest crime areas in Memphis, I guarantee you that correlates with money. So if we ain't having a money conversation, then we're not having a conversation. And so if we're going to talk about Juneteenth in 2025, there has to be a group of radicals in this room, in this city, who are willing to challenge school districts, city council leaders, county leaders, state leaders, in order to change what is happening in this city. You should be unleashing protesters on their asses every single day. And that means groups showing up in power. I'm a life member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I need to understand how is it that you got alphas and deltas and AKAs and zetas and links and Prince Hall Mason and Eastern Star and all these groups. I want to know when the last time has your organization showed up in mass presenting an agenda at the city council meeting. Imagine if all of a sudden 2 and 3 and 4 and 500 women in Pekin Green roll up to the city council meeting saying, here's our agenda for Memphis. Imagine if red and white folk, women in red and white, or brothers in black and gold go to a Shelby County commissioners meeting saying, here is our agenda. And let's be clear, if you don't enact it, we're going to make sure that somebody is put in here who actually can enact it. I'm sick and tired of pastors getting together, slapping each other on their back, reciting scripture, but not putting the same scripture into place. If Jesus had the audacity to turn over some tables, when was the last table you turned over? Gatherings like this are not about eating an unseasoned piece of chicken. Gatherings like this are supposed to be recommitment efforts for you to be focused on the agenda of freedom and liberation of our people. If you came here to take some selfies, to eat a dinner, and then go back and say, I checked off this event of the Negro event I went to for the month of June, then you're wasting your time. If you come back to this room next year for the 33rd event and the city looks the same way it did this year, you've wasted your time. Your job over the next 364 days is to change the look and the feel and the condition of this city, and the people are waiting for you to show up. So if you're in this room calling yourself a black leader, well, damn it, act like a black leader. Walk like a black leader. Talk like a black leader. Be willing to fight. And if you are a white ally, whether you are male or female, you do the exact same thing. But you need to understand this is going to require folk having the guts and the tenacity and a revolutionary mind and a radical agenda to be able to say we're not satisfied with what's going on. You got to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to challenge. You got to be willing to make some of your friends and frat brothers and sorority sisters and church members uncomfortable. I don't care if they look like you. They need to be pushed and prodded and forced to change. This is a generation that's got to learn how to fight for something. And in the words of my frat brother Burton Woodson Tandy, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight